Hello, Goblin friends. It's I'm out to get you, also known as Jens. That's my handle on Magic the Online and other places on the internet, including on architect.com, where I have my up-to-date goblins list, which I'm going to be talking about today. There should be a link below. One of the things that I've talked about in the past is this goblins deck. It's an aggro deck. It's very low CMC, very efficient, and aggressive. It turns out the game on, well, turn 4, usually you have a dead opponent. But if games are grindy, if they go long, you need to accrue a lot of card advantage and a lot of value to close out the game. This deck has a combo, non-deterministic, but still a combo, which allows you to do that. So that's what I want to talk about today, and getting all of the value out of your play sequencing as you can, because it's a little bit difficult to understand unless you see what's going on. So, people always ask me, why don't you play bigger Mana Valley Goblins, like Chain Whirler, like Goblin Chieftain, even Goblin Pile Driver, and I always say it's not efficient enough, you need to be lower. I like having, total here is 34 Goblins plus 4 sorceries with Breakouts here, which essentially count as another Goblin, except for you can't cast them off the top of the deck with Conspicuous Snoop or Rundvelt Hordemaster, but we want to keep this spot absolutely jam-packed deck full of goblins so that we can rely on the tribal synergies with Rundvelt Hordemaster and Conspicuous Snoop to get us those card advantage and use Skirk Prospector and the low mana value of all of our creatures here to combo off, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the mana value for the whole deck, we're at 1.42. We have a total of 22 spells, you see here, that are 1 mana, and only 16 that are 2 mana. In the past, I've also played things like Goblin Instigator, which are essentially 2 1/1 goblins for 2 mana. So you get extra goblins because they give you extra bonuses for tribal synergies, like the +1/+1 from Rundvelt Hordemaster or from Battlecry Goblin, but also they get 2 death triggers with Rundvelt Hordemaster, so you're essentially drawing cards and mana neutral if you sack them to Skirk Prospector while they're on board. Now, I'll go take a look at the Mako game and how things went there. So, first things first, we kept a nice hand, opener. Oh, wrong game. I have the wrong one lined up. Sorry, I want to have game 2. Do that replay. Poor quality. If I was interested in making good content and not just getting it out there, I would probably edit this out, but that's not going to happen. So, what do we have? We have a decent starting hand. We have 3 1-drops and a 2-drop. The Conspicuous Snoop lets us get a little bit of card advantage, and we have 3 red sources, which is what we want. Our opponent, we've seen in the first game, is on Yorion. They want to play a bunch of enchantments out. They have Sylvan Caryatid and things of that nature, so I'm thinking of this like 5-color Nib to Light mana confluence nonsense. The point is that I want to kill them, and I want to kill them quickly. So the way that I do that is I'm going to put out my Skirk Prospector first turn. I drew into a Rundvelt Hordemaster. Really lucky for me because that's my second 2-drop. The second turn, I could either go into Conspicuous Snoop and try building up card advantage, or I could go with 2 1-drops. I draw another 1-drop, the Fireblade Charger. So why don't I take these 2 down so that I can attack, and then I can finish up with a Rundvelt Hordemaster and a Fireblade Charger to get a little bit more advantage next turn and go full aggro. Just allow me to spend all of my mana. Alright. So, opponent's turn. They are going to play Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Now, that puts them a little bit in a better defensive position because they have a Goblin Shaman token as well as the Sylvan Caryatid. If I draw a Legion Loyalist, that's going to let me get past their token, but Right now, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to play these two as normal. I'll sacrifice the Fireblade Charger, I'll kill the Goblin Shaman token, and then attack for 6 damage and only have 2 of it go through. But instead, I drew the Masked Vandal. So I did something very interesting here. Remember, you look at the log, this is only turn 3, so it's very early in the game. I'm on the draw because I won the last game against the opponent. So, first things first, we're going to play our Stomping Grounds. We're going to take the damage from the shock. Then, I'm going to use 2 mana to play our Rundvelt Hordemaster. That lets us cast our Masked Vandal, but we're going to do that using the Cacophony Scamp mana. So we sacrifice Cacophony Scamp, deal 2 damage to something. That something is going to be the Goblin Shaman token. And then we have a green mana from the Stomping Grounds open. Rundvelt Hordemaster from the Death Trigger exiles Foundry Street Denizen off the top of the library. And that's pretty good because we got some card advantage from that. We essentially cantripped our Goblin that cost us 1 mana last turn, dealt some damage, drew a card, and got that mana that we invested into it back. Now we use that mana with the green, cast our Masked Vandal, and because we have a nifty creature in the graveyard, we can use Masked Vandal to blow up the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So it looks like I've used 2 cards to counter their 2 cards. But I also drew a card in the process, so I'm still up a card in the mix, and there are 4 cards in hand. They could have had this Fable of the Mirror Breaker from the beginning. They might have 2 additional lands just dead in their hand, and they need to draw into some gas. So, Fable of the Mirror Breaker gets exiled. There's nothing really else that I can do, except I'll go in and sacrifice the Masked Vandal just to get another Death Trigger. What did we exile off the top? Well, we had a Sokan Zone, but it's kind of okay. We don't really need to get a land. For next turn, we have 3 mana, we have a bunch of goblins out. We have a Rundvelt Hordemaster that's going to protect us from board wipes. If that happens, their Sylvan Carry did us out in the game too, and it's kind of just like a reset. We could also have another land under that, we don't know. The point is, it gave us another trigger, let us draw a bit more, and we have Foundry Street Denizen on board, which is a little bit better at attacking than our Masked Vandal is. We're just converting that into card advantage. So, go ahead and attack, we just deal 2 damage. So far for a turn 3, this is actually kind of slow, but if you think about it, we've dealt with a lot of the opponent's board pretty well. They had a Fable of the Mirror Breaker that's completely negated. In terms of who's in control of the game, well, they have 5 cards in hand, we have 2, but all of these are going to refund themselves when they die with Rundvelt Hordemaster, and we have Conspicuous Snoop, so I'm not feeling too bad about anything. What do? They play an Astral Cornucopia. I had to read this card because I have no idea what it does. If you're curious, you gain 1 life for multiple colored spells for each of the colors, and, you know, that stands to reason with some 5-colored Niptolite nonsense. But I keep up their blockers. So, really right now, I'm thinking, okay, they have 3 cards in hand, they're looking to draw into something. I need to close out this game quickly before they take everything that they can away from me. So, go slowly, we do get that other land off the top, we're going to play that, and then the smart thing to do is to look at what the top card is with our Conspicuous Snoop. Do you have a 1-drop in hand? We got a 1-drop here, we're always going to play that 1-drop off the top first. So, this is coming into the Goblin combo part. We declare that we're going to cast Cacophony Scamp off the top. We pay mana as per usual. We see another Cacophony Scamp. If you always have a 1-drop on there and you have open mana, unless you want to use the off-color mana or something, or you're trying to do something with Nixthos, which this deck also plays to, you know, keep the mana open, you want to do that. So, we declare that we're casting it. We had 1 Cacophony Scamp in play, we sacrifice the Cacophony Scamp to Skirk Prospector for mana. That means that our Cacophony Scamp that was on top, because we declared that we're casting it, and then we pay the mana by sacking Cacophony Scamp, it means it goes away. The next card underneath it, the Rundvelt Hordemaster, under the first Cacophony Scamp, is the one that gets exiled with this Rundvelt Hordemaster's trigger off of the Cacophony Scamp death. So Cacophony Scamp is cast. By killing Cacophony Scamp, we exile the card under it. That means that we see an extra card with Foundry Street Denizen. If we'd done it in the other way, if we just played the sacrifice Cacophony Scamp, the exile trigger would exile Cacophony Scamp, then we could cast the second one, the second Cacophony Scamp from exile. We would see the Rundvelt Hordemaster on top. Instead, we cast it off the top, it gets out of the way, we dig one card deeper, and we see this Foundry Street Denizen. So, we deal 2 damage to our opponent, because we have our Rundvelt Hordemaster. Now, remember, this is what I mean by the combo. We have 4 Cacophony Scamps and 4 Fireblade Chargers. It's very rare that you're going to sideboard these bad boys out, because they essentially do the same thing. When they die, they deal damage equal to their power to any target. When you have a Rundvelt Hordemaster out, that means that they have +1/+1 because they're goblins. That means that they deal 2 damage. 2 times 4 plus 4, 8, 16 damage. So you have 16 direct damage, so as long as your opponent is close to there, they were at 17, we already dealt them 2, we can run through our entire deck when we're in a dominant position like this, and reduce them to 0. So, now we have a Foundry Street Denizen on top, but we have this Rundvelt Hordemaster on the side. I think the player now was going to play the Rundvelt Hordemaster. Oh no, we play the Foundry Street Denizen. We sacrifice the Goblin. We exile something off the top. We exile Battlecry Goblin. I wasn't expecting to be talking this much. We get the Foundry Street Denizen out. Now at this point, we can sacrifice that. We get another death trigger. You see off the top of the library what gets exiled. Well, it's the Copperline Gorge. You have a new Copperline Gorge there. At this point, I say screw it. We're going to cast the one that's in our hand. See if we can dig 1 card deeper with that. It's not going to attack because it doesn't have haste. We need 4 mana to play our haste enabler, the Battlecry Goblin, which 2 mana to cast, 2 mana to +1/+0, and give haste to all of my goblins. You can use the activated ability with Conspicuous Snoop when the Battlecry Goblin is on top of the deck, but that's not the case right now. So I opt to do another 2 damage, put them down to 11. At this point, I've dug a bunch of cards deep, play the Rundvelt Hordemaster. You could do this a bunch of different ways, but they haven't responded to me, so I figure that I should be fairly close to getting killed. So I play the Rundvelt Hordemaster out for the passive pump. I'm going to attack in with all these massive creatures. It would be nice if I had found a Legion Loyalist. I could dig deeper and try doing that, but, you know, they could have a spell to disrupt me still. They're playing it a little bit safer. I don't want to risk everything on this Foundry Street Denizen, or, you know, maybe I was just playing it wrong. So I declare all my attackers that I can. Go into the blocks. They, of course, block 9 damage coming from the Foundry Street Denizen. And so we have 8 go through. That leaves them at 3 life. It means between the 2 Rundvelt Hordemasters, I just need to find 1 more Foundry Street Denizen or 1 more Cacophony Scamp. At this point, this has been a pretty good turn. But we can still turn the page here. Sacrifice creature. We get a Skirk Prospector off the top. That's our 1-drop. So you can play that. And we'll sacrifice the tapped one now, because we have some duplication. We exile 2 more goblins off the top, Battlecry and Conspicuous Snoop. We need to sacrifice something else, so we'll sacrifice our tapped Skirk Prospector. And to sacrifice him to his own ability, yes. We exile 2 more lands and show another land. I have 2 mana at this point. We are going so deep. Here, we play another Conspicuous Snoop. Now, we just need one more. We have 2 Conspicuous Snoops. We have 2 rundvelt Hordemasters, so we're going to take 3 cards. Sacrifice a Conspicuous Snoop. What do we get? Well, Fanatical Firebrand, Legion Loyalist. We had 2 mana, now we're down to 1. I'm going to cast the 1-drop off the top. Legion Loyalist. Boy, would that have been better if we dug for it first, but, you know, sequencing and everything, we wouldn't have been able to dig for that with our Foundry Street Denizen on board. Maybe we should have kept it all, but you never know, right? It could have gone either way. There's still room for improvement here. What I'm trying to demonstrate, though, is the attitude that you have to have in order to play this deck well is really not to care about your goblins and just care about the card advantage. But look at this. They're playing an 80-card deck, yes, because they have Yorion, and they've seen 10 cards this game. I have seen 31 so far, 32 if you're counting the top card of the deck, right? Just the card advantage that this gives you over your opponent is massive. So we have a Fanatical Firebrand. We're going to want to turn that into mana. Oh, sacrifice it. We get another 2 cantrips. We have a Breakout. We have a Den of the Bugbear. It's not looking good. We just aren't getting there, right? Opponent's at 3. So what do we do from now? Sacrifice one of the rundvelt Hordemasters. We have another one off the top. We can get that. Still nothing. 2 death triggers out there. Play the rundvelt Hordemaster. At this point, even though I'm that close to coming to the end, I'm going to call it quits. If they are playing Nip to Light, something like that, you know, they're going to drop some big lifelink creature or something like that. They're going to have to tap out all their mana. I've already dealt them a huge amount of damage. They don't have real big chance. Even if they do, I have 4 mana on board. I have a mountain up. If I draw a mountain, I can activate my Den of the Bugbear and swing in. Or I can play a Battlecry Goblin, give it haste, and because it gives itself +1/+0, and haste, it's going to be able to attack immediately for 3. Unless they gain a bunch of life next turn, it's over for them. I could, obviously, keep on digging deeper. If I had, I think I would hit a couple more things. Really, what I'm just trying to show is you gotta dig as much as you can using the goblins that you have, sequence it properly, play the top card of your library, any 1-drops you have there, then play any of the 1-drops that you have in exile. If you have cards exiled on your previous turn, so that you're not going to get them available to you on the next turn with Rundvelt Hordemaster, because they can only be played until the beginning of your next turn's end step, then you play those ones first, and then you do the ones that have this turn and next turn to be played. And if you still don't have any 1-drops there, then you can empty your hand out and just keep on sacrificing them down so that you can cantrip through your deck. What ended up happening here? Well, my opponent looked at their next card, and well, they conceded off of that. They didn't get anything. Could they have recovered from that position? Maybe. I don't know. They wanted to see their top card. I feel like I was in a pretty dominant position here, but, and going back to this, all the way up here, all of these game actions, this is just turn 4. They're on the play, they're a turn ahead, they're on turn 5, where their deck should be able to turn the corner. What have I done? I've reduced them to 3 life, I've got a solid aggro board state, I've exiled their Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, so denied them from getting 2 draws because they didn't get up to there. I took out one of their mana sources, and I have all these 3 cards that I can play. And I have 4 cards in hand. 1 mana up. And I have a man land in here as well. Well, not man land, a creature land, and then the Bugbear. It gives me more goblins. It's just overwhelming. So, how did I do with the rest of the league? Well, sadly, I goozled it slightly. Ran into Phoenix in game 3, match 3, and I lost 1-2. It wasn't really that great. Still no 5-0, but this is what I mean when the deck has potential. You have to keep your deck build efficient. I've played things like Goblin Instigator before, because you get 1 card, but it gets 2 death triggers that lets you draw 2 cards. Very good with Rundvelt Boardmaster. Right now, you don't really need it. Lots of things that this deck can do in the right hands, and I just wish that more people would pick it up, because it is so much fun to play, very easy to follow when you're playing in paper as well. All you need to do is track your Rundvelt Boardmaster triggers, your Foundry 2 Denizen triggers, and remember to flip up the card on the conspicuous Snoop. It just overwhelms opponents, and it's always very well situated, whatever meta. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but for a deck that isn't a mainstream deck, I think it's got a good chance of, even for a reasonably skilled player like myself. I'm not great at Magic the Gathering, but I pulled in a bunch of trophies last year. I'm still grinding positive about Miko, even though I am absolutely not spending any time on here. I've been amping myself up to make videos about this for more than a year, since I picked up the deck, brewed it, and really refined things. Put out the article about it through playing MTG on there, and got a lot of good responses through that, but still, it hasn't really taken off, and I really wish it would, because Goblins is absolutely 100% viable in Pioneer. And with that, I want to say, thank you to everybody watching to the end. If you got comments or anything, please like and subscribe. It's going to be more coming down the pipe soon. Adios.